In your work today, do you still come across any remaining NIMDA or MS Blast
I'd
packets
have to
that you
look.
observe?
I know we're still seeing a ton of EternalBlue. We're still
Oh,
seeing
yes.
Conficker. These things never go away, and with the amount of telemetry we have, I would be really, really surprised if we're not seeing some MyDoom and some, you know, SQL Slammer, or, I mean, these things never really go away. I mean, if there's a infected computer on the internet, it's still going to sweep the entire internet every day trying to find something else to infect. And we have about just under 700,000 firewalls out there sending us telemetry. So I would be shocked if there's anything that's active that we're not seeing, but it's not something that comes up all that often. But EternalBlue, there's still a ton of it out there.
Is there any one particular misconception about cybersecurity that you would want to communicate to defenders or the public today that you think are commonly misunderstood?
Everyone, including people in the industry, often confuse privacy and security and lump them together. And they're really quite different things. And in this climate that we're in right now, where many governments are talking about wanting to backdoor encrypted chat programs, the changes politically going on in the United States, there's a lot of turmoil right now out there and a lot of discussion around online privacy. And I think it's an interesting challenge, right? Because, like, if you're a company trying to protect your users, if your users have privacy, then ultimately it makes it harder to protect them. So security and privacy don't always go together. Because if I want to inspect things to know if they're bad or dangerous for you, that means I need to break into them. I need to see where you're going. I need to see what you're doing. I need to see what's inside those packets. Is there something malicious in there? Is there a URL that you're going to a phishing website? Well, if I know you're going to a phishing website, I also know you're going to an adult content website. And I also know you're going to your bank. And I also know that you're shopping for your Father's Day present. Some interesting moral and ethical challenges we face as practitioners, I think, to decide what is it okay for us to break into and look at and what isn't. Because in the pursuit of security, you'd want to break into everything and look at all the stuff. But I think we all probably agree that that's bad. There ought to be some boundaries around some things. And the question of where those boundaries lie is very complicated. I don't think people think enough about that. And I think security people I know don't think enough about, when they're providing people advice, what is the actual threat for the person you're providing the advice to, right? I was visiting my mom and my uncle 2 weeks ago. They're quite elderly. They don't know much about computers. When I have 5 minutes with them, what do I tell them? Do I tell them that their password should be 35 characters with an exclamation point and a ampersand? Do I tell them that the Wi-Fi at the mall is scary? Do I tell them not to plug their phone in at the airport because it might be juice jacking? Probably not. I don't think I tell them any of those things. I probably tell them to use different passwords everywhere and write them down in a notebook. And I wouldn't give that advice to my 25-year-old niece. The things that when we give people advice, we need to give it within the context of who they are and what their threat model is. And if your threat model is a nation state, then the advice you get is very, very different than if your threat model is a commodity scammer who's trying to convince you that they're Toronto Dominion Bank and that you should give them your password.